back-to-back days with 5x drive streaks broken.
Solo some rats. Now look, he might be a master necromancer, but 100 rats with pointy sticks almost killed him. Luckily, we just throw zombies at the problem and all is solved. This is a reminder of the mortality of the immortal. Turn 6 sees the biggest battle yet, a showdown versus the final boss of the rats, Sneer Frotskar. With 3 heroes and some very dangerous units, the game predicts we will lose most of our units, but I believe in our undead, so let's do this. We slam thousands of zombies into thousands of rats in a chaotic fight. Our healing magic comes in clutch again and keeps our front line solid. As one zombie falls, another gets up and carries on the fight. But still, I'm not confident. The main problem we face are the rat assassins that will just beeline to killing our lords. Necromancers generally are slow old men who will die to a strong gust of wind. In a normal faction, if the lord dies, the troops might get upset and run away, but chances are they'll continue the fight. If a necromancer dies, well, they're the only thing actually keeping the army summoned. And we do genuinely almost lose our lord to one persistent rat, but thankfully we can bravely run him away. Still, we prevailed and won.
4, southbound 151. Traffic for eastbound, something about now. The 159. And 4.
Eastbound or westbound on 440.
Copy 6 to 8, 440 westbound. Knock on 440 westbound 28.
Condition.
Speed 130, passing the Bedlam line traffic.
Notified, PD.
25, 10 4. Getting on westbound.
do it. 40 miles, Street, call it station. Call it station.
And four, turn on the Mercer Drive, dead end. Up Conley, 260 Springville.
Dumb your fucking head!
Oh man, LinkedIn is in some serious trouble because they have been spying on you this entire time. So LinkedIn, the job social media that people use to find jobs, network with people and try to further their careers, well, they've actually been exposed for spying on you. Remember that they also work with Persona Identities, one of the biggest ID verification vendors out there. And LinkedIn has been illegally searching your computer, and they, with Microsoft, are running one of the largest corporate espionage operations in modern history. Huge shout out to Fairlinked EV for doing this research, but man, we got to get into this because this is crazy. So LinkedIn is illegally searching your computer. Every time any one of LinkedIn's 1 billion users visits linkedin.com, hidden code searches their computer for installed software, collects the results, and transmits them to LinkedIn servers and to third-party companies, including an American-Israeli cybersecurity firm. The user is never asked, never told. LinkedIn's privacy policy does not mention. Because LinkedIn knows each user's real name, employer, and job title, it is not searching anonymous visitors. It is searching identified people at identified companies, millions of companies every day all over the world. And I actually have something to add to this as well. If you guys recall, I did a video about a month ago talking about LinkedIn sending your face and other personal data to a quote global network of third-party data sources, and of course they were using Persona to do so. So basically somebody wants to have a better chance of getting noticed on LinkedIn, so they go ahead and verify their identity. What Persona was collecting was your full name, passport photo, selfie, facial geometry, NFC chip data, national ID number. You get the idea. And LinkedIn was sending that information to a bunch of other people, meaning that everyone who verified with LinkedIn, your information is possibly everywhere. Well, now LinkedIn themselves have not only been sending your information everywhere, but they've also been collecting it and harvesting it, and this could lead to one of the biggest data leaks of all time. The folks over at Fairlinked have dubbed this BrowserGate. They are an association of commercial LinkedIn users who represent the professionals who use LinkedIn, the business that invested and depend on the platform, and the tool makers who build products for it. So BrowserGate is their investigation and campaign to document one of the largest corporate espionages and data breach scandals in digital history, to inform the public and regulators, to collect evidence, and to raise funds for the legal proceedings required to stop it. So this is what they found. A mass breach of personal data. LinkedIn scan reveals the religious beliefs, political opinions, disabilities, and job search activity of identified individuals. LinkedIn is scanning for extensions that identify practicing Muslims, extensions that reveal political orientation, and extensions built for neurodivergent users, and 509 job search tools that expose who is secretly looking for work on the very platform where their current employer can see their profile. Under EU law, this category of data is not regulated. It is prohibited. LinkedIn has no consent, no disclosure, and no legal basis. Its privacy policy does not mention any of this. LinkedIn scans for over 200 products that directly compete with its own sales tools, including Apollo, Lucia, and Zoom Info. Because LinkedIn knows each user's employer, it can map which companies use which competitor products. It is extracting the customer list of thousands of software companies from their users' browsers without anyone's knowledge. It kind of reminds me of what Honey was doing. If you guys remember that whole Honey thing that was exposed by this YouTuber Megalag, Honey was going into your browser and sniping affiliate commissions away, and this LinkedIn thing is pretty similar as well. They're infiltrating your browser without you even knowing, and they're going ahead and taking your information as a result of it. LinkedIn has already sent enforcement threats to users of third-party tools using data obtained through this covert scanning to identify its targets. In 2023, the EU designated LinkedIn as a regulated gatekeeper under the Digital Markets Act and ordered it to open its platform to third-party tools. LinkedIn's response is, it published 2 restricted APIs and presented them to the European Commission as compliance. Together, these APIs handle approximately 0.07 calls per second. Meanwhile, LinkedIn already operates an internal API called Voyager that powers every LinkedIn web and mobile product at 160,000 calls per second. In Microsoft's 249-page compliance report to the EU, the word API appears 533 times. Voyager appears 0 times. At the same time, LinkedIn expanded its surveillance of the exact tools the regulation was designed to protect. The scan list grew from roughly 461 products in 2024 to over 6,000 by February 2026. The EU told LinkedIn to let third-party tools in. LinkedIn built a surveillance system to find and punish every user of those tools. They are shipping your data to third parties, and this is something that we already talked about last month in that video I was telling you guys about, but LinkedIn loads an invisible tracking element from Human Security, formerly Perimeter X, an American-Israeli security firm, 0 pixels wide, hidden off screen that sets cookies on your browser without your knowledge. A separate fingerprinting script runs from LinkedIn's own servers. A third-party script from Google executes silently on every page load. All of it encrypted, none of it disclosed. And if you're going to tell me that Persona Identities, Rick Song's company, has no involvement here, I would not believe you for a second. These guys have been working together to collect, harvest, and send your information to third parties. And now with this whole BrowserGate thing that is happening with LinkedIn, I would not be surprised if Persona was involved at all. So just some of the key numerical takeaways, right? The investigation alleges LinkedIn secretly scans users' browsers for over 6,000 extensions and potentially affected 405 million people worldwide. LinkedIn apparently denies the the allegation stating browser detection is used solely to protect platform integrity and prevent scraping violations. Yeah, you can miss me with that bullshit. There's no way that that's true. Remember, like I said a month ago, LinkedIn and by extension Persona already got exposed like a month ago for collecting all this information from you just because you want to verify your profile on LinkedIn. Look at all this information they were getting about you just so you can have a better chance of getting a job on LinkedIn. I mean, it is insanity. Some of their quote global network of trusted third-party data sources included government databases, national ID registries, consumer credit agencies, utility companies, mobile network providers, and postal address databases. This person scanned their passport for a check mark, but they ran a background check. And of course, with all of these AI verification companies like Persona and by extension LinkedIn using them, most of the time they are really just going to be using your information to train their AI. And remember, in the whole BrowserGate thing where LinkedIn was snooping around your browser and taking all your information, this was just some of the information they got just from Persona. Your full name, birth year, government ID, verification result, and a blurred version of your ID. So they were already receiving plenty of information from Persona where they were going ahead and being able to send that to all these trusted third-party sources or whatever the fuck. So in terms of the regulation of LinkedIn, once again, shout out to these guys for doing this research. In 2024, Microsoft was designated as a gatekeeper under the Digital Markets Act in the EU. The two regulated products are Microsoft Windows and Microsoft LinkedIn. The Digital Markets Act mandates the gatekeepers follow business users and authorized third-party free, effective, high-quality, continuous, and real-time access to all data, including personal data that is generated through the use of LinkedIn. This is the slimiest shit I've seen in a while. Instead of complying with this regulation, Microsoft decided to distract EU regulators in Brussels with what can only be described as a compliance theater. It was the API voider thing that we were talking about, and that's when LinkedIn started injecting malicious code into the browsers of their users without their knowledge or their consent. 6,222 software products specifically, maybe even more through the investigation, with a base of about 405 million people. And that's because LinkedIn knows each visitor's name, employer, and job title. Every detected extension is matched to an identified individual. And because LinkedIn knows where each user works, these individual scans aggregate into detailed profiles of companies, institutions, and government agencies, revealing which software tools their employees use without the organization's knowledge or consent. And obviously, most if not all companies have a privacy policy, so you'd think that LinkedIn would disclose all of this in there, right? Nope, LinkedIn has not disclosed this practice in its privacy policy. There is no mention of extension scanning in any public-facing document. So I'll leave a link to the browsergate.eu website in the comments, but basically here's some of the things that you can do to stop BrowserGate. One, check if your tools are on the list. Like I said, I'll leave the link in the description. Here's a list of extensions that LinkedIn scans for. This big-ass list over here. Over 6,000 extensions over here. Definitely go ahead and look it up. Just enter your extension's name or ID to see it in LinkedIn's actual JavaScript code. It'll take you like 10 seconds. Number two, obviously, just like with any of these, scandalous companies and situations, I mean, corruption is just so normalized nowadays. And like I said, Persona and by extension Rick's song, I'm sure you guys are involved in this in some way. I do not trust you guys at all. Share this around, right? Share this video around, share the articles around that I'm going to put in the comments. Number four says talk to the press. I mean, that's pretty similar to what we're talking about. Just share this around, share this video around, share the articles I put in the comments around, and just make sure that people know about this and go ahead and boycott LinkedIn. And they also have a legal fund over here that you can support, because obviously LinkedIn might take these guys to court and silence them through the sheer money that it's going to require to have this court case going. And you can also obviously send letters to your local data protection authority, Microsoft or LinkedIn directly, your national IT security authority, or your member of parliament or MEP in the United States, your House of Representatives people or your senators. And you can also request your data from LinkedIn. You can send them a GDPR subject access request and demand that they disclose which extensions they detected on your browser, when they scanned your browser, what data they stored, who they shared it with, and their legal basis for processing. Do not ask for the standard data export. Ask specifically for extension detection data, device fingerprinting data, and any records transmitted via their AED event and spectroscopy event tracking systems. Send a GDPR request, pre-filled template. And you can also file a complaint with your data protection authority, and you could register as a potential co-plaintiff, because if LinkedIn loses a case, you might actually be eligible to get some money. And yeah, this is a crazy situation. So yeah, once again, shout out to Fairlinked EV for all this research. You guys are doing some great work. Screw LinkedIn, and by extension, no pun intended, screw Persona as well. I don't trust Persona for a single second, and yeah, this is insane. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the situation in the comments. LinkedIn has been exposed for harvesting your data and actually snooping around your browser. Please leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more. See ya.
Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
I had a whole bunch of people send me this story, and I also saw it widely reported places like Jalopnik and so on. And I've encountered this issue many times in my career, practicing law now for 34, 35 years. I'm into my 35th year now. And so I've had a lot of phone calls over those years from people who said, Steve, I hired someone to do work on a classic car. They took money from me. They've got my car, and either they're not doing the work, or I think they're ripping me off, or they've disappeared, or my car has disappeared. And these kinds of things happen in this world. So here's a story out of the state of New York, a town called Macedon. Macedon business owner involved in classic car scheme going to prison for $2.5 million wire fraud. And this is directly from the press release from the Justice Department, justice.gov. And the press release actually came out a little over a month ago. But this is the first time I've talked about this story, although I've done stories similar to this. But a U.S. attorney announced that a gentleman who's 51 years old out of Cape Coral, Florida, was convicted of wire fraud and has been sentenced to serve 24 months in prison by a U.S. district judge. The attorney who handled the case for the government stated the man was the owner of a car repair company that specialized in classic cars, in the restoration and sale of antique vehicles in Macedon, New York. It is not uncommon for such restoration work and the collection of authentic parts to take place over the course of years. And many of this man's customers were long distance or international. That is extremely common. You got some weird old car. There's only a few of them left on the planet. And some guy goes, yes, I can fix that for you. But it's going to take me a while to track down the parts. So ship the car over to me. I'll put it in my garage. I'll start tracking down those parts. You got to give me some money to get started. And as I find the parts, I'll do the work. But I, can't find the parts immediately. And you don't want me, by the way, paying top dollar for parts if I can get them cheaper. So I'm going to really, really dig into this, okay? As a result, customers often relied on his assurances of what work was being done without seeing the work in person before paying him. And I know people who said, hey, Steve, I dropped my car off at this place, haven't heard from the guy in a year. I went by there because he stopped returning my phone calls, and the place is cleaned out and empty. I don't even know where my car is. So, if it's not local and you're not going to be able to check up on the guy from time to time, what assurances do you have? So between 2018 and April of 2022, they say the man made misrepresentations to customers, many via email and text message, about work and acquisitions he claimed to have completed to obtain money from these customers. And nowadays, if you've got someone's cell phone and you can text them, they're seeing your texts. In the old days where somebody just had a phone on the wall and you call and it just rings because they haven't got a secretary or a receptionist, you're not sure. Like, maybe the guy's not there. Maybe he keeps weird hours. Maybe he's out hunting down parts for my car. Okay? So now, of course, if you got his cell phone number and you're texting him and he's not returning your texts, that might be an indication you've got trouble. His intent, they say, was to obtain money for unfinished work he claimed was finished and to stall his clients so he had enough time to complete the work. And so I've mentioned before that oftentimes these situations, or people who do like home improvements, sometimes there are unscrupulous people in the field where they take cash from one customer and say, you're going to pay me some money up front. I'll start doing the work, but I need that money to get started. And then as I go along, you'll pay me more money. And then eventually I'll finish the work you pay me and I'm done. And there are people out there who will start several jobs at the same time and spend too much money from one job to complete it. But what they'll do is they'll tell themselves, oh, I'll take the money from the second job to pay for the first job. And next thing you know, it's no, I'll take the money from the fourth job to pay the second job. And they used to refer to those as a robbing Peter to pay Paul scheme. And of course, that is also akin to a Ponzi scheme. But it's not quite a Ponzi scheme in that sense, because you're not investing money here. You are simply paying someone to do work and to buy parts. So they say, for example, in 2019, the man falsely claimed over text message and email to a victim that he had completed work on an engine for a Duesenberg, and he emailed the victim an invoice for $25,000. So the victim wired the funds to the bank accounts controlled by this man. In addition, he sent emails to another victim overstating how much work had been completed on a 1964 Porsche in order to obtain payment for work he had not done, but intended to complete in the future. Now, here's the thing. If I tell you, pay me some money so I can do work in the future, that's one thing. If I say pay me some money for work I've already done, but in my mind I'm thinking, but I'll do it as soon as I get the money. That crosses a line, and I'm sure you see that. So during the course of the scheme, they say he defrauded victims of a total of approximately $2.5 million. In fact, they broke it down to the penny. $2,536,308.64. Of course, nowadays you'd round it up to 65, right? The sentencing is a result of an investigation by the FBI under the direction of a special agent in charge. Now, I did go and pull the earlier press release that described the man being arrested because it had a little bit more detail. So they talk about the victim who lives in Pennsylvania, who paid the man to purchase or restore numerous vehicles on his behalf, but eventually became aware of instances in which the man lied about work done on vehicles and what was purchased in order to obtain money, including that 1932 Duesenberg in question here. And then also they say another victim was from Canada, and the Canadian victim paid this man to acquire and or restore 6 rare and high-value antique automobiles in exchange for payments totaling $374,000. That's one person. And that victim is the one who had the 1964 Porsche 356C, and the man says he never got that. He paid for it, he says, but he never got one. And then there was another victim who lived in the UK and France who entered into an agreement with this man to restore a 1926 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost he had purchased from an acquaintance of this man. And by December of 21, this victim became suspicious that work was not being performed properly and requested verification, at which time he became unresponsive. So later, the victim hired a private investigator and an attorney who were able to locate the Rolls-Royce. However, very little restoration work had been done. So they found the car, but the work hadn't been done. So the man then had to make an initial appearance in front of a magistrate, and things proceeded as they did, and they got the point where he wound up being sentenced to prison for 24 months, and he was convicted of wire fraud. And so that's another thing you got to remember, is that if I walk up to you and you rip me off face to face and we're standing in Macedon, New York, chances are that's a state crime. But if I say to you, hey, wire me some money, the use of the wires or the U.S. Postal Service, or pretty much any time the stuff crosses state lines or international boundaries, it's going to invoke some kind of federal statutes. And that's what they got going here. And so the number of times, like I said, in my career, I've actually represented people in cases like this. And I stopped because for the most part, they're a nightmare. Because number one, even when you win, you can't collect because these people often don't have a lot of money, as you might imagine. Number two, they're often kind of hard to nail down. As you'll notice, they say that the man was of Florida, yet his shop was in New York. And so it's not uncommon that someone like that might go, you know, things are getting a little hot up there in New York. I think I'll stay down here in Florida where it's nice and cool. Ironically, you might think people go to Florida because it's warm down there and cool up here. But no. We're talking about when the heat is on, like in that song. So I've had so many of these stories where people call me, and cases I have taken, cases I haven't taken. And I mean, I find them heartbreaking because I've had someone call me and say, Steve, I have this vehicle that I bought years ago. And they often have a story attached to it. My dad found this vehicle and wanted to restore it, and he passed away. Or, you know, my dad had a car just like this, and I want to do this in honor of him, that kind of thing. And I did a ton of research. And everybody recommended this one guy. This one guy specializes in these cars, these motorcycles, these whatever it might be. And what's unusual is that quite often there are people who are well known in these communities as the person to go to who knows everything about these cars or vehicles, whatever it might be. And the scary part is that someone who's an expert in something like a car, might not be good at running a business. And in fact, it might not even be a business that can support the guy. The guy might want to run a business where he's a specialist in some bizarre car that nobody else knows anything about. But it might not be enough to keep him going as just a specialist in that. And one of the worst stories that I ever heard was a guy who said he brought the vehicle to somebody after doing a ton of research, and everybody said, this is the guy, this is the guy. So he takes his vehicle to the guy, and he gives the guy some money, and the guy does a little tiny bit of work. He's sending him pictures. I found this part here, I found this part here, and then he goes quiet. He goes quiet. And so finally, the customer gets a little upset because he can't get any response, and he drives by the guy's shop, and he looks in the window, and the place is cleaned out. The guy's vanished along with all of the cars. And the person I spoke to said, mine wasn't the only car there. I have no idea where the guy went. And it's possible, and this is where you start getting into nightmare material, it's possible that the guy just didn't pay rent on the building and skedaddled. I don't know who owns these vehicles. This stuff is now all abandoned. That's what's possible. That's what's possible. So, like I said, I've gotten that phone call so many times that I hate to even think about it, because when someone brings that story to me and says, I can prove all of the above, assume these facts are true. Okay, where is the guy? Don't know. What's the guy's legal name? Not quite sure. What was the name of his business? Well, he had me make the checks out to him. Okay. To sue somebody, we got to find him. And like I said, what if the guy skedaddled to Florida or Arizona or Guam? I mean, you know, and so it's sad. It's very, very sad. So if you have a classic car that needs to have work done, you need to do a lot of research. And one thing you got to be very careful about is when you do research and you find discussion boards and Reddit threads that all say, hey, this one guy's the best. This one guy's the best. Unless you know the people making those posts, how do you know any of that's true? But number two, unfortunately, there are people out there who are doing really, really well in business, and for whatever reason, their business tanks. And if you come along right around the point where it tanks, all the best recommendations in the world might not help you there, because it might be that the guy used to be the best, but he's not anymore. So you got to be very, very careful. It is a world fraught with peril. But like I said, the story actually broke at the end of last year, but this happens so often. But here the case is the guy is from Macedon, New York, business owner involved in classic car scheme. He's going to prison for 2 years, federal prison, for $2.5 million in wire fraud. And that is from a press release directly from the Justice Department at justice.gov. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Leto's Law. Do not taunt Happy Fun Ball. Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
This is perhaps the most requested story of all time regarding RVs on my channel. Mark sent me a note this morning, said, Steve, check out this version of it. And it's all over the internet, but much of it has been in YouTube videos. And this, however, is from autoevolution.com. Christian Kermai wrote this, a very well-written and thoughtful piece about a couple from Canada who bought an RV that cost more than $1.3 million, and they've hit a problem and possibly a lawsuit with the government being involved. And the government we're talking about here is the U.S. government. But again, they're from Canada. They bought a 2022 Newmar King Air 4531 for no less than $1.35 million. They've owned it for 3 years. They love the thing. And in fact, they have raved about how well they were treated by the manufacturer of the RV. But they decided to sell it. So selling a vehicle that large and expensive is difficult, but they found a buyer in Arizona. They made arrangements for a driver to come out to the Canada border and pick up the unit and take it to Arizona. This is where things went sideways, as we like to say. At the border, An officer said, your broker's filled out the wrong documents. This vehicle is not compliant for importation. I think the stickers are fraudulent. Now, here's the problem. This thing came from America. Newmar is located in Indiana. The chassis manufacturer that's going to get mentioned is from Charlotte, Michigan. In fact, I know them quite well. I've sued them before, but another story altogether. So they did get through the border, and the driver took the vehicle down towards Arizona. But a couple days later, Brian gets a phone call from Customs saying they need to bring the RV back to the border because there's an issue they want to look at. And if you don't bring it back, there's a fine of 3 times the value of the vehicle. So they're basically saying to import the vehicle, there's rules you got to follow. And one of the rules is bring it back. Let's take a look at it because there's a problem. At the border, the agents seized the RV and they actually sent Brian home with his tow vehicle. And the question is, what's going on here? Because they'd crossed the border before many, many times. The issue, of course, is when you're crossing the border and you say, I'm just visiting, vacationing in America, just driving around, that's one thing. But when you say we're crossing the border to sell the vehicle here, suddenly you are importing it. Now that you're importing something into America, more scrutiny happens. So there are tightened regulations at the border about imports, and so officers are taking extra steps to make sure everybody's compliant. 20 days later, Brian was informed the coach could not enter the U.S. You are denied entry into the U.S. So now, here's where the story starts getting a little shaky. The man still wants to sell the unit. So he reaches out to Newmar and says, guys, here's what happened. He tells them the whole story. And they say, oh, okay, we'll help you. And apparently they found him a dealer in Florida who said, I'll buy the vehicle from you, just get it here. So the man who owns the RV decides to bring it across the border at Buffalo. And I've made that crossing before. It's a very scenic crossing, as you might imagine. So he was immediately flagged, pulled into an office, and they questioned him. Why are you trying to cross again when this unit's been flagged? It's been flagged. So what is going on here? So Brian and an official NHTSA inspector started to look for the vehicle's vehicle identification number to ensure that everything was in order, but they couldn't find one anywhere on the chassis. There was not a permanent and non-tamperable VIN anywhere, no etchings or plates anywhere either. And as you might know, in automobiles, there's always a VIN tag at the base of the A-pillar on the driver's side that you can usually see by looking from the outside of the car through the window glass, okay? Usually. And federal law requires them and says that you got to use these special kinds of non-tamperable things. But also, most modern vehicles have the VIN in more than one place. So it's often stamped on the frame. It's often stamped on like a firewall or something. And sometimes it's stamped in more than one place on the frame. Depends on the kind of vehicle. They did find portions of a VIN or VIN stickers in 3 non-compliant areas in the RV. And so federal law says, here's where you should put them to make them count. And here they had one behind the driver's seat on a wall panel. There's one in a cupboard and one at the rear of the RV, but they said those aren't proper. Meanwhile, Brian contacts the president of Newmar, who's the guy who said, I found you a dealer in Florida. And the guy from Newmar asks the inspector, well, where should we put the stickers? And apparently the inspector told them, you're the manufacturer. It's not my job to educate you on how to manufacture your vehicle. And this is one of those things. I remember a story years and years and years ago about people who are entering a race in Europe. And they have this process you go through before the race where they inspect your vehicle. And they inspect your vehicle and they say, okay, we inspected it. We think you're good to go. And just as the race is about to start, an inspector is walking down the starting grid and he spots something and he goes, oh, your vehicle is non-compliant. And the driver and the team go, but we passed the inspection yesterday. And the inspector goes, yeah, but we caught something today that does not pass inspection. And the driver goes, yeah, but we passed. And the inspector goes, it's not our job to catch you. It's your job to be compliant. And that's what the inspector from NHTSA is telling them. And so they should know that. So after that call, the NHTSA inspector informed the owner of the RV that because of the lack of any permanent VIN anywhere on the frame or chassis, the vehicle is now going to be seized. So the owner reached out to Newmar, and apparently at that point, communication broke down. So now the owner says he's talking to lawyers, trying to get in touch with the manufacturer to see if they can't work something out. But in the meantime, and by the way, I underlined this paragraph to make sure I hit it nice and hard. In the meantime, Brian received a notice of penalty from the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, for $660,000 for trying to cross without a compliant vehicle. Please pay now. You may use a credit card. $660,000. So the U.S. Customs agents had been working, trying to figure out what's going on. And somewhere along the line, the owner was informed that a supervisor went to a nearby Newmar dealer and inspected 4 other units looking for VINs, all of which were found in the same state as the VINs on this man's vehicle. And so apparently, a border agent mentioned to the owner that the U.S. government might be looking into Newmar on a larger scale. So here's the problem. And I mentioned earlier that the Newmar RV is on a Spartan chassis, and that's not uncommon. There's companies that make chassis, companies that make drivetrains, and then there's companies that build the unit that goes on top of these things. And Spartan is a very, very well-known manufacturer of RV chassis. And they're in a place called Charlotte, Michigan. It looks like Charlotte, but it's pronounced Charlotte. We don't know why, it just is. And so Spartan apparently, in these cases, only etches part of the VIN on the RV chassis. But that's not enough. It must be the full-length VIN, which is more than 5 digits, okay? So it's unclear now if the government's going after Newmar. That's the kind of thing they wouldn't exactly announce until they did something. But the question is really, what's going on here? And so if you buy an RV from anybody, you should probably check the VIN and say, where's the VIN tag? I want to see a VIN tag. So in this case, the couple contacted Liz Amazing, who's got a YouTube channel, and she's the one who put up the video, and I've had a million people send me links to that video. They contacted her. She got the word out. Her video is going insane right now, and that's good because this is a crazy concept. And, you know, I've bought some vehicles in the last few years, and I've looked at the glass and looked through the windows to see what the VIN said. A few years ago, I actually bought a vehicle where somebody fat-fingered one of the digits on the certificate of title, the application for that. And so when I got the title, I'm looking at it, and it didn't match the VIN on the car. And it's a very, very complicated story as to how I figured this out, but I did figure it out. I can also tell you that some cars occasionally have VINs in other places, but the car companies are very good with that now. They know these things. And so the VIN on a car, like I said, you check the one underneath the glass at the A pillar, but there's going to be others on the car. And I've told you before about people who've cloned VINs where they've taken a stolen car and taken the VIN off something else and put it on this car. That's another thing, again, altogether. But here, the fact that the unit doesn't have a VIN in the appropriate place with the full-length vehicle identification number is a problem. And NHTSA is very picky about that. And so in the old days, and of course, if you've seen Rain Man, you'll recall that there's a subplot about Tom Cruise's character trying to get cars into America that have the wrong types of instrumentation on them, because that used to be a big deal about having the speedometer and odometer read in miles rather than kilometers. And so that used to be what we talk about with vehicles being brought in from Canada. because you had to in the old days, you had to swap out instrument clusters and put stickers on the door and stuff. But here, it's kind of wild because you would just assume a $1.35 million RV wouldn't have a problem like this, because this is, as you can imagine, something pretty straightforward, you know. And when you build an RV that elaborate, that expensive, that complicated, and then, oh, by the way, there's a problem because the VIN tag isn't where it's supposed to be, if there is one, is something you'd never imagine being the problem. And so I've known many, many people who bought RVs this expensive or less, a couple more expensive, and usually it's more a matter of, oh no, we had like a 3-hour walkthrough as somebody was showing us how everything worked and where everything was and all of this stuff. And it wouldn't occur to you like, oh, by the way, now that I've seen the full-size stand-up shower and the granite countertops, can we check the VIN tag? It wouldn't occur to you. So right now, I assure you there are people in the audience who own RVs who are going to say, wait a second, have I ever checked the VIN tag in our vehicle? I don't know. Crazy case, but Mark, thanks for tipping me off. And to Christian Kermai, who wrote this for AutoEvolution.com, and of course for Liz Amazing for bringing a story to the broader public. Coupled $1.35 million RV stumbles upon huge possible lawsuit. The government is involved. And the scariest part of all is that there's a notice of penalty from the U.S. government for $660,000. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Leto's Law. When you try your best and you don't succeed, when you get what you want, but not what you need. Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
I've got an update on one of those stories that's been sent to me by everybody. Thank you very much. And this is a happy kind of ending. The story's not over yet, but it looks like it's going to end well. But at least a big portion of it has. From the Associated Press, a Kansas county has agreed to pay $3 million and apologize over the raid on a small town newspaper. John Hanna and Heather Hollingsworth wrote this. The rural Kansas county has agreed to pay a little more than $3 million and apologize over the law enforcement raid on the small town weekly newspaper back in 2023 that sparked outcry over press freedom. I did several stories about it. Marion County Sheriff's officers were involved in the raid on the Marion County Record, that's the newspaper, and helped draft search warrants used by Marion City Police to enter the newspaper's offices, the publisher's home, and the home of a local city council member. The editor and publisher said they intentionally wanted to harass us for reporting the news, and you're not supposed to do this in a democracy. He added he hoped the payment was large enough to discourage similar actions in the future. The raid prompted 5 federal lawsuits against the county, the city, and local officials. The man's 90-year-old mother, who's the paper's co-owner, died of a heart attack the next day, which he blames on the stress of the raid. During the raid, authorities seized cell phones and computers from the newsroom and rifled through reporters' desks. Search warrants linked the raid to a dispute between a local restaurant owner and the newspaper. And the newspaper had obtained a copy of her driving record while reporting on her request for a city liquor license. The raid also came after the newspaper had dug into the background of the police chief at the time who led the raid. The raid triggered a national debate, and that's putting it mildly. There was a firestorm. There was a brouhaha nationally about press freedom focused on Marion, a town of about 1,900 people, set among the rolling prairie hills, some 150 miles southwest of Kansas City, Missouri. Police body cam footage from Meyer's home, that's the editor, showed his mother, who lived with him, visibly upset and telling officers, "Get out of my house." So he's the editor and publisher, and his mother was one of the owners. An attorney for the newspaper released a copy Tuesday of the 5-page settlement agreement resolving legal claims against the county. Claims against the city and city officials have not been settled, so there's still more to come. Meyer, again the editor, said he believes they'll face a larger judgment once those claims are eventually resolved. Marion County's administrator and attorneys for the city and county did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Under the judgment, the estate of Meyer's mother will receive $1 million. Meyer, 2 former Record reporters, and the paper's business manager will split the $1.1 million, and the former city council member will receive $650,000. Meyer said he's considering a fund to ensure that the paper remains financially viable, or a program to encourage young journalists to work in small communities like this one. Because you don't want to discourage them by saying, oh, by the way, they might raid the office if you write something they don't like. Meyer said the goal isn't to get the money is symbolic. The press has basically been under assault. 3 days after the raid, the local prosecutor said there was not enough evidence to justify it. Experts said the police chief was on legally shaky ground when he ordered it, and a former top federal prosecutor for Kansas suggested it might have been a criminal violation of civil rights. Oh? A retired Kansas Press Association executive director said Tuesday that the raid violated the state's shield law for journalists. It allows law enforcement agencies to seek subpoenas to obtain confidential information, but requires them to show a compelling interest and that they can't obtain it in another way. The man speaking there was the association's executive director when the law was enacted back in 2010. The law has been on the books for a while. They should know about it. The Record is known for its aggressive coverage of local issues. And the guy from the Press Association suggested police were trying to get at him, the editor of the paper, because of his adversarial relationship with local officials, adding, it totally backfired. They didn't follow any of those requirements, and therefore was really a slam dunk in terms of whether they broke the law or not. Now, a professor at the University of Kansas who teaches media law described the raid as an egregious violation of the First Amendment rights of Meyer and the Weekly. And by the way, it's not just theirs. It's violating the rights of all the readers of the paper. It's violating the rights of the people in the community, because the community counts on the paper to publish the news. And if they're being silenced through criminal acts. So the professor says, I share his hope that an award of this size serves as a deterrent against future ill-conceived warrants with political motivations. And no amount of money brings Joan Meyer back. That's the woman who died. We need to stay vigilant against government incursions on the press. The search warrants were premised on the idea that the newspaper and a reporter may have illegally impersonated the local restaurant owner to obtain her driving record online, and that the former city council member illegally circulated it by sending a cell phone screenshot to the city manager. Now, 2 special prosecutors who reviewed the raid and its aftermath said nearly a year later that the Record, its staff, and that one council member had committed no crimes. No crimes. The prosecutors also said the warrants signed by the judge contained inaccurate information from an inadequate investigation, and that the searches were not legally justified. And then the man who's police chief resigned. Here's the thing. I've read arrest warrants before. I've read search warrants before. And what they start out with is an affidavit that somebody fills out and says, here's everything I know. Based on this, a search warrant should be issued, or an arrest warrant should be issued. And the law enforcement person signs it under oath. So if it contains inaccurate information that's been sworn to under oath, you need to take a look at that for potential perjury, because I have seen police officers and detectives charged with perjury for filing affidavits sworn to under oath that contained inaccurate information. It's really easy if you can make stuff up to get a search warrant or an arrest warrant. Just make stuff up and swear to it. Well, you shouldn't be able to do that. So if you do, maybe they should be looking at you for perjury. Just a comment there. So the former police chief is scheduled to go on trial in February on a felony charge of interfering with a judicial process, accused by the 2 special prosecutors of persuading a potential witness to withhold information from authorities investigating his conduct. He had pleaded not guilty and did not respond to a text message recently seeking comment about the county's agreement. The charge against him stems from text messages between him and the business owner after the raid. The business owner had said that he had asked her to delete text messages between them, fearing people could get a wrong idea about their relationship, which she said was professional and platonic. By the way, my laughing there is not editorializing. I just occasionally laugh erratically. What can I tell you? The Marion County Commission approved the agreement after discussing it in private for 15 minutes. Now, again, when the commission meets behind closed doors for 15 minutes and comes up and goes, yeah, we'll pay a couple $1 million, $3 million. It's kind of like a jury deliberating for 15 minutes and coming back out with a verdict. Okay? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That's what they should do. The agreement required the new sheriff to issue an apology. And the sheriff's statement does that. The sheriff's office wishes to express its sincere regrets to Eric and Joan Meyer and Ruth and Ronald Herbel for its participation in the drafting and execution of the Marion County Police Department search warrants on their homes and the Marion County record. That's a statement from the sheriff's office. So remember that the police chief had resigned, and so this is not the police chief making this apology. This is the sheriff's office making the apology. And what's important about that is you might say, Steve, isn't it kind of like when a teacher grabs a little kid by the ear and drags him over and makes him apologize? Say you're sorry. I'm sorry, and then lets him go? No, this is actually different. This is actually different. Because even though it was a court-ordered apology, basically, I mean, it's a settlement, but they've been ordered to apologize. The apology here has both a legal effect and just a general confirmation effect that now everyone knows that what the sheriff's office did was wrong. The sheriff's office had stepped up and admitted it. And it might not have been these exact same people who were involved, but they've admitted that, yes, this office did something wrong. Because that's the other thing you got to remember, is that courts and police departments and other organizations are something other than the people who work there. So when you're looking at a judge on the bench, you have to remember that that judge speaks for the court, So if you're in front of a different judge in the same court, you're actually in front of the same court. And a sheriff's department or a police department or whatever it might be is a department that does something. And there might be one or two bad apples in there. And when the bad apple leaves, you don't track him down and go, you apologize. I mean, if he did, it might be nice. But this department apologizing is pointing out that as an organization, previously, this organization did something wrong. And the people who are here now acknowledge it, apologize for it, and we're owning up to it. And that's always been one of those things that's bothered me. It happens a lot in the law with police departments and so on, where they let somebody resign and the person goes off into the sunset and people are looking at the people who stayed behind and say, well, what about you guys? Oh, we don't have to apologize. We didn't do anything wrong. He did. Okay, wasn't he working for you? Wasn't he a representative of your department? Was he an agent of yours? When he was acting on your behalf and did something wrong, shouldn't you apologize for that? No, look at that. He's gone already. He's over the horizon. I can't even see him anymore. I've already forgotten what he looks like. No, you have to apologize. And people understand it wasn't you personally. But you should stand up and say, this organization did something wrong for which we apologize. And people understand if you weren't there, it wasn't you personally. But you have to understand that what happened to this newspaper, there's a reason it made worldwide news. This was covered by organizations in other countries. And it was something that first graders understood. That's one of stories I've covered on this channel. You've got your civil asset forfeiture, you got your qualified immunity, and you got the raid on that little newspaper. this is just one story about one newspaper in one small town, but everybody recognized how wrong it was, what happened there. Everybody. And, you know, I don't know what age I was when I first heard of the concept of freedom of the press, but I seem to recall I was quite young when I got that. And it's just something that we're all familiar with. And the newspapers are there for a reason, and they should be allowed to report on our government officials, because if they don't, who will? How many people here have attended a city council meeting in the last month? Yet there's some reporter in the corner reporting on it. We need that. We need that. And I don't want the reporter in the corner being scared, going, well, if I write what they actually said, I'll get in trouble. Don't want that either. I want a reporter to go there, pay attention, and if they spot something amiss, to report on it. That's what we want. So I'm so happy to see this, but keep in mind, they haven't settled everything yet. They've settled part of it, but the part they settled was worth $3 million. But unfortunately, it will not bring back the woman who died, who had a heart attack. And did all of this have anything to do with a heart attack? I have no doubt that it did. No question in my mind. So thank you to everybody who sent it from the Associated Press. Kansas County agrees to pay $3 million and apologize over a raid on a small town newspaper. John Hanna and Heather Hollingsworth wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Leto's Law. Every minute you are angry, you lose 60 seconds of happiness. Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
A question we've discussed before. If you own a piece of property that is lakefront, can you stop people from walking along the shore of the lake? Do you own all the way to the water, or how far down do you own? And this is one of those things I've mentioned before, that the laws in the 50 states vary wildly from each other. Here's an example of one where the laws appear to vary from state to state when it comes to states that border Lake Michigan. So Ian sent me notes, and Steve, check this out, from Wisconsin. Shorewood resident takes Lake Michigan shoreline access to court, and Shorewood's a town in Wisconsin. So this is from WUWM by Susan Bentz. A local man is headed to municipal court in Shorewood to challenge a claim that he trespassed on a private beach. The case could serve as a test of just how much access the public has to Lake Michigan's shoreline. It's a question that has yet to be definitively decided in Wisconsin. It has been decided elsewhere. The man's a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Zilber School of Public Health. He says for years he's walked the path down to Shorewood's public Atwater Beach and then headed north, walking the shoreline below homes along Lake Drive. He said, I beeline for the shoreline because my understanding has always been that along the shoreline you can walk. But last summer, his routine was broken when a homeowner just north of the beach told him he was trespassing. He was out there and he said, did you see the sign? I said, yeah, I saw the sign. And then I ignored the sign because this is a private part of the beach and this is the public part. That is, the private part's there and the public's here. And I'm going to walk in the public part, he said. So he says that the public part of the beach is everything between the water and the high water mark. The high water mark is the point where the water usually or occasionally rises, but often it's where sand ends and vegetation begins, because water does rise and fall periodically. And sometimes it's cyclical, not in the matter of a day, but weeks or months or even years. I can tell you there were years where Lake Michigan was really, really low, and then it got really, really high, and it just comes and goes. So the homeowner was not happy and called the village, and the police issued this man a $313 ticket for trespassing. So he said he's not going to pay the ticket out of principle. I want to go to court because I don't think I was trespassing. I admit that I was walking there, but I don't think that was trespassing. So he says the beach is something people should have access to. Now, the attorney for the village says that the village maintains that people owning homes along the lakeshore own everything down to the water's edge. Down to the water's edge. So that means when the water comes up, they own less. When the water goes down, they own more. And think about that right there, and that might be an issue. So the attorney says that the court concluded that walking on the shoreland between the ordinary high water mark and the water constituted trespass. An individual would not be trespassing if they're in the water. So they can walk in the water, according to this guy, but they can't walk on the land at all. And so a director of Marquette University's Water Law and Policy Initiative says that that decision is one of many cases that have been taken up in court regarding public access to Wisconsin shorelines. You can take snippets from a lot of them that seem to support one position or another. He says, while those cases haven't provided definitive answers, the public trust doctrine protects the public's right to access the water. And that doctrine is ancient. It goes back to Roman law, he says. It was incorporated in the Northwest Ordinance, which goes way back also. And that's the ordinance before Wisconsin even became a state. And then it was carried forward into the Wisconsin Constitution, which guarantees the right of access to navigable waters. And so navigable waters are waterways or lakes big enough that you can float a boat on at any time of the year. And so the Great Lakes would obviously be navigable waters. But he says the doctrine lacks details that could help resolve these conflicts. For instance, people who motor a boat or walk a shoreline may not know where the public portion ends and the private property begins, because unless somebody marks it, how would you know? So shoreline walking challenges have been taken up in other states bordering Lake Michigan. And this is according to the director of the Center for Water Policy at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's School of Freshwater Sciences. She says that state Supreme Courts in Michigan and Indiana held that their state's public trust doctrines protect the right of the public to walk on Great Lakes beaches and Lake Michigan's beaches, in Indiana's case, below the ordinary high water mark. So keep in mind that Michigan actually touches several Great Lakes, so that would apply to Superior and Michigan and Huron and a small portion of Lake Erie. And in Indiana's case, it would just be Lake Michigan. But those two courts, Michigan and Indiana's, said that the portion between the high water mark and the water itself, that strip is absolutely public. You can walk on it, and they cannot block you from access, the owners can't, of the land that's adjacent to it. So the conflicts intensify when people own waterfront property. And another doctrine comes into play here, and that is a property owner's right to exclude. So if you own property, you can keep people off it, absolutely. It's just the question is, who owns that strip? So people buy waterfront property for a reason. It's expensive for a reason. This is one of these people. What happens in a lot of those cases is that private expectation of the right to exclude others kind of collides with that public trust right to access Wisconsin's navigable waters, and that's what this dispute is all about. So everybody's watching this closely, because obviously what happens in court with this guy at the municipal court level, or whatever the lowest court level is there, isn't going to make or break the law on this. What needs to happen is this guy needs to take this case up. And what that means is, believe it or not, he's got to lose. Because if they decide to dismiss this case and let him go, you're kind of stuck. You need to have an issue that a higher court can look at. And so I hope that the guy takes us up and we get a ruling out of Wisconsin and see if it matches the rulings from Indiana and Michigan. It'd be kind of unusual if you looked at all the states that border this one big lake, and it turns out that, well, a couple states go this way and a state goes this way. But I mean, I've got so many stories about this. When I was first working in radio in Bad Axe, Michigan at WLEW, one night they decided to do a Ask the Lawyer program. The radio station was country. We played country music, but AM. And we did all kinds of other stuff too. And so one night they advertised we're going to have an Ask the Lawyer program. And they're going to bring in a bunch of lawyers to the radio station, put them around a table with microphones, and then have people call in with legal questions, and the attorneys will answer them. And I got to run the board for that. So I screened the phone calls, put the people through, and then I listened to the answers given by the attorneys. And this was one of the questions that got asked. And I remember a very animated caller upset because they owned a piece of property along the thumb of Michigan, the edge of the thumb on Lake Huron. And they said, I got a piece of property and the beach is down there, and people walk back and forth across it all day long. And it bugs me. And one of the attorneys had to explain and said, well, and at that point it wasn't as well settled as it is now, because this would have been in the early 80s, because the case that came along and settled it was later than that. But the attorney even then said, the few cases we've got on this suggest that that portion, that strip of land, is open to the public. And the caller's like, well, are you telling me I can't kick them off? And what happens when they build a bonfire and don't clean up after themselves? And it's like, well, but they have right to access that. And if they do something else there, that's another story altogether. But the point is that they have the right to be there. And that's the big issue here. And so it's one of these classic arguments that has been going on for as long as we know. And I mean, I've seen so many cases in Michigan where people are fighting about where their land begins and ends with respect to lakefront. And you might say, how complicated can that get? I mean, I buy a house on a lake, I walk down to the edge of the lake, there's the lakefront, isn't it? And there have been examples where a piece of property is drawn in such a way, and it would actually define one edge as being the edge of the water. And then, of course, the lake dries up. So did you just gain a whole bunch of property this way? Well, what about the guy next door and the guy next door and their property goes this way? I mean, it's weird, the stuff that happens. And then they also define navigable waters as waters which you can either float a boat or a log on, because they're often talking about logging and rivers that were navigable. And then it turns out that a lot of rivers over time meander and move around, and occasionally some of them dry up or some of them get deeper, you know? And so this stuff can change. It's nature. Nature does weird stuff like that. And so if you're familiar with Michigan, and you know that many people in Michigan are going to represent the lower peninsula by holding their hand up and saying, well, here's the thumb of Michigan and Traverse City's up here. And there are a couple peninsulas up there, the Leelanau Peninsula and the Old Mission Peninsula. The Old Mission Peninsula is the one that divides the Traverse Bays. There's two of them up there. And at the tip of the Old Mission Peninsula is a lighthouse. And there's a little park around the lighthouse that's open to the public. And you can go down and you can go walk and play in the water and look at the lighthouse. Beautiful lighthouse. And a couple years ago, the lake levels dropped. And at that point, the water is very, very shallow. If you walk at 100 yards, it might only be knee deep, except when it's low. And I've been out there before where the water dropped to the point where you had a hard time walking all the way out to the water. It was a hike. Hundreds of yards. You might say, Steve, who can't walk hundreds of yards? Well, the problem is that the water that receded left the ground soggy, and there would be all kinds of aquatic insects, bugs, and it wasn't a pleasant walk. And you might say, but you take your shoes off and walk barefoot. Yeah, and it's kind of mushy and kind of gross because of the bugs and the vegetation and stuff. But my point simply is that the shorelines can do this over the years. And in Michigan and Indiana, you as a property owner own down to the high water mark. And the high water mark probably isn't even a bright line, meaning that if you had 10 people standing there, go, where is it? They might go, I don't know, there. But the point is that there's going to be a strip of land. So if you're out walking in Michigan or Indiana along Lake Michigan, you're probably safe to walk as close to the water as you can any time of the year. And as long as you're right up against the water, you're probably below the high water mark. Unless the water's really, really high and it's at its high water mark, in which case you've got an issue. But as they point out, even in Wisconsin, if you're walking in the water, you're good all day long. I also knew a guy who had a piece of property up in that part of the state of Michigan, and he got sick of people walking across in front of his house. And he actually put up no trespassing signs and ran wire, not barbed wire, but wire down to the signs, and it forced people to walk around his property in the water. But I saw people come by and look at the house and just step over it and walk, because the people who knew what they were allowed to do would do it. And so, unfortunately, these kind of disputes are always going to happen. And I know that the people out there who say, but Steve, if I spend $1 million on a piece of real estate that's on a lakefront, I don't want people just walking around or holding bonfires on the beach down there. I don't want them doing that. Unfortunately, that's the law in Michigan and Indiana. In Wisconsin, all bets are off. But we'll see what happens. But it is a timeless question, if nothing else. So Ian, thanks for sending that from WUWM. Susan Bentz wrote it. Shorewood, and that's a town in Wisconsin. Shorewood resident takes Lake Michigan shoreline access to court. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Leto's Law. To be a champion, you have to believe in yourself when nobody else will. Welcome once again to Leto's Law. Here's Steve Leto.
This video might run a little bit long, but that's because I'm going through a federal court opinion, and it's an extremely important case involving qualified immunity. And the court here explains what's going on with qualified immunity to such an extent that I think it's important to cover this in detail. So, in the United States District Court for the District of New Mexico, Ernest Padilla, personal representative.
He's got a knife in his hand.
Where are you stabbed?
Everywhere.
She's been stabbed probably a dozen or 2 dozen times.
Please tell me to die.
On September 28, 2022, the Sumter County Sheriff's Office is called by 68-year-old Marjorie Green, who claims she has just been stabbed in her home in Lady Lake, Florida. Investigators are left reeling as they try to understand the motivation behind the savage attack, only to discover that the gruesome incident was captured on camera.
I so love her. I still love her.
The following is based on official police records, and the footage has never been seen before until now. At 7:44 a.m., as deputies race to Marjorie's house, she warns that her attacker is still inside. Even with this warning, they are unprepared for the horror waiting for them within.
Sheriff's office, open the door!
Want to go back door?
Well, she's saying the front door is going to be locked.
10-4 it is.
That's one.
212, she's stating she cannot get it. She's barely breathing. Caller just advised to break the door down.
Well, you're good to 4 centuries in that residence.
Ready?
Sheriff's office!
Sheriff's office! Ready?
Go ahead.
Sheriff's office! Sheriff's office! Got lots of blood. Sheriff's office!
Stand by.
That's 10-4.
He's in the chair. He's in the chair. She's in the chair. Sheriff's office! Sheriff's office! Hey,
134 is
he's
window.
breathing. He's breathing.
You got a knife?
He's got a knife in his hand.
Get the knife out of it. Have EMS rolling.
Can't move.
Okay.
212, do you guys have anybody outstanding?
The male's unresponsive in a chair.
Help.
Where are you stabbed?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
I think of my lung.
Okay.
I'm having trouble.
Okay.
Can't move.
Okay.
I called him.
Okay. Oh, I got her. Okay. Okay.
Huh?
Okay.
Telling me die.
Huh?
Please tell me die.
No, we got the ambulance coming.
Marjorie identifies her attacker as her husband, 72-year-old George Hashi, who is now unresponsive in the other room.
Can you look at me? Can you look at me? You still there? Squeeze my hand. Can you squeeze my hand?
Besides slightly blinking his eyes, George doesn't move.
All right, Margaret. That's your husband? Okay. Just luckily you're not bleeding a lot right now. Okay. So just take shallow, deep, shallow breaths. Don't hurt yourself. The ambulance is on their way.
He's got shallow breathing. He sliced his throat all the way across.
All right, so you can put something on it.
Where's the bathroom? Here.
You're in a lot of pain?
Yeah.
Okay. How's your throat? Did he get your throat at all? No. Okay.
Though her throat may be fine, Marjorie has multiple stab wounds to her chest, torso, and legs. George is also seriously injured.
He stabbed her. I got this female on the floor. She's got her lungs. She's been stabbed probably 2 dozen times.
Telling me die.
She's my victim if you want to start with her. Yeah. She's talking, but she's critical.
Maybe know where you are right now?
What's that?
I'm in the
What happened today?
He got angry and stabbed me everywhere. Tried to kill me.
You having any trouble breathing right now?
Yep.
You got any chest pain?
Yeah. Way down here.
Alright.
No, it was this. I don't think he got the carotid. I don't think he had the carotid.
You have any trouble breathing right
I
now?
don't see it bleeding right now. It's not bleeding out. And what about that one? This one?
Did you wrap this?
Yes.
Were they bleeding really bad?
Yeah.
Let's just wrap him tight.
I didn't see any up on his stomach.
Let's wrap these tight.
Besides,
Oh man. Did he say anything before he stabbed you?
Gonna kill me.
Okay.
Sir, hey, wake up, okay? Keep those eyes open.
Both Marjorie and George are determined to be in critical condition. Despite her many injuries, Marjorie managed to tell the deputies part of what led to the incident.
They're getting a divorce. He told her he was going to kill her, and then he started stabbing her.
Hey, do you know what a dying declaration is? Just let her know that these wounds could possibly be fatal. But did you let her know these wounds could possibly be fatal? And we need to know what happened. That way it's covered under the dying declaration.
Marjorie, you understand that your injuries might be fatal? Okay. Can you tell me who did this to you?
My husband.
Okay. What's your husband's name?
George Hess.
Okay. And did he say anything before he started stabbing you?
Yes, it's gonna take time.
Okay.
Yeah, grab him underneath that armpit, grab him under that.
Grab them and go. Let's go.
Ready? 1, 2.
Hold on.
Bless.
He's stuck. He's stuck and he's sitting in blood. A huge puddle of blood.
He's alive. Do you guys need anything from us right now?
No, sir. We're just waiting on the ambulance.
All right, cool. No, we need to load somebody up. We can. I don't know. We'll put them on a roof rack somewhere, but
It's been a while for one of these.
I was looking at the call history, and it was leading up to it.
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get
a lot of civil stuff
here.
The deputies also take care of one more thing. The couple's dog, who has been quietly sitting on the bed this entire time.
Got it. There you go. You got it?
Yeah. All right. Let them know their radios and stuff.
Yeah.
They get a chance. Hey, it's okay, baby. It's okay.
The dog was left in the care of a neighbor. Just before she's transported, Marjorie drops one more bombshell.
Is there a camera? Is that what you said? There's a camera on the counter over here. I don't know if it's working. Sitting on the desk. Why?
Well, it'd be great if we caught it on camera, wouldn't it?
As it would turn out, the entire incident was caught on camera and would eventually reveal the details of the brutal attack. Before they can review the haunting footage, however, Marjorie is rushed to the Ocala Regional Medical Center.
She had about a lot here, a couple on her legs.
She had 13, I counted total, but I couldn't see her back. So
Okay. Yeah.
On her front, I counted 13.
Look at the splatter on the lampshade. You know, I don't even have any words.
I didn't even put my belt keepers on.
Well, I saw you at the annex. I was like, I hope she's not in the bathroom.
I was.
Because I was like, I'm going to need backup on this one. Because I knew.
I threw this on so fast it wasn't even funny.
I wasn't sure what his status was. Like, if he was in there with a knife waiting for us or what, you know?
Trying to understand what led to the incident, deputies spoke to both Marjorie and George at the hospital. Miraculously, both survived their wounds. With her sister at her side, Marjorie explains that she and George had started divorcing about 6 months prior. She was no longer living at the house where George was still staying.
I had moved in with an ex-boyfriend, basically.
Okay.
And I was going back to his house.
She was only at the house she used to share with George to get a few things when the incident occurred.
He basically attacked me.
Okay.
He called me all kinds of nasty names.
Okay.
That's all I can remember.
Okay. Do you remember anything else about the morning or what happened to you?
I just remember he kept coming at me with a knife.
The exact moment George attacked her was caught on a camera she had set up in her old bedroom. When deputies spoke with him, George shared some insight into his state of mind during the violent outburst.
I just snapped. Been under incredible stress with this marriage, with my relationship. It just, I have tried since July 14th to get her to relent on me. She walked out on me. I never saw it coming. It hurt me deeply. She ripped my heart out. Right. She ran. And she's done it before, apparently. She hooked up with her first husband over the internet. And I'm like, what? I had no idea. I begged her to stop being so negative.
He kept saying he wanted to kill me, that I was evil.
This is by far, that's why I wanted to die. This is the worst thing by far that has ever happened to me.
A deputy also spoke to the EMT who transported George, and he shared that he made similar claims on the way to the hospital.
On the way here, whenever we got him stabilized, he finally woke up, says he wants to die, doesn't want any help, started fighting a little bit, and admitted, and then he said, I tried killing my wife, I want to die, and over and over and over again fighting with him. He said he still don't want nothing done to him, he's going to do it again whenever he gets out.
Going to do it again whenever he gets out.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Did he leave? Did he stay?
He tried to leave.
He tried to leave?
I did.
Oh, you did. What did you do?
I tried to get out the front door.
Okay. Were you able to do that?
No.
Okay.
He kept coming after me.
Okay. He what?
Kept coming after me.
Kept coming after you. Okay.
Earlier, the deputies noticed a chilling detail about the crime scene and what George may have been doing during those moments following the attack.
Smoking a cigar probably before he did it. Last cigar.
She crawled to the bedroom to get her phone. Okay. She said it took her some time to crawl to the bedroom.
I so love her. I still love her. All the things she's done to me, I don't care. I would take her back in a heartbeat and we would have to work it out. I don't want a divorce. I never wanted a divorce.
Regardless of what he may have wanted, Court records indicate a dissolution of his marriage to Marjorie in 2023. Prior to this, however, George Hashi was charged with attempted felony murder. According to court records, he entered a plea of no contest for attempted first-degree murder with a weapon and was adjudicated guilty. He was ordered to have no contact with Marjorie, and restitution was ordered for her in the form of $30,000 for medical expenses. The restitution was reduced to a judgment lien. George was sentenced to 18 years in prison with a credit of 1,173 days for time served.
in through your nose and out through your mouth. In 2, 3, 4, and exhale 2, 3, 4. Good. Let your shoulders soften, let your jaw relax. Now gentle pressure on the hips as your partner exhales. Good. And breathe.
This is so boring.
2, 3, 4.
How about you shut up and do your job?
Ah, come on, Zane. How about we just go home and fuck? We haven't had sex in forever.
That's because it's bad for the baby.
Yeah, but fuck the baby. This is stupid.
Did you just say fuck the baby?
Hey, relax, girl. I didn't mean like really fuck the baby.
No, you know what? You can just go home. I'll finish this myself. You can go home and jack off if you want.
Ah, perfect.
Hello, boss.
Ah, shit!
Good news, boss. We just shut down another abortion clinic.
Oh, yeah, great. That's great.
Yes, boss. You've made other Christians so happy. Of course, there is still one more clinic that will still perform abortions right here in town.
There is?
Oh, yes. How unfortunate that some babies will not be able to be born. As Christians, we can't allow this to continue. Perhaps you should go speak with this abortion doctor personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come in. PC Principal, do you have a minute?
Sure, Jesus. What do you need?
I'm starting to wonder if I really fit in here.
Of course you fit in. This school has been a cesspool of heathen left-wing little bitches, and only our faith is gonna set them right.
Could I ask exactly what branch of Christianity are you?
The kind that loves his country and doesn't tolerate any fucking fags.
Yeah, see, I really think I don't belong here.
Look, I understand it's a tough transition. You know, the vice principal here had the same conflict as you, but she's really come around.
The vice principal? Your wife?
That's right. Can you send in a strong Christian woman, please? She was saying this wasn't the place for her anymore, but just this last weekend, she converted to Christianity.
You wanted to see me?
Yeah, strong Christian woman. I was just telling Jesus here about our faith.
Oh, yes, it's been such a blessing.
She converted on Saturday. What do you think, huh? You ever seen a more Christian chick in your fucking life?
Never.
Look, I know it's a hard adjustment, but just stick with it, and you're gonna fit in here just fine, Jesus.
Everything go good at school today, honey?
Yep. School was good. School was pretty good.
Is everything okay, honey?
Yeah, everything's fine. It's fine. Mom, can I ask you something?
Sure, Eric.
Do you know on average, at what age kids lose their baby teeth?
Oh, I'm not sure, Eric. I guess usually around 6, 7? Eric, what?
No, nothing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about your menstrual cycle.
My menstrual cycle?
Yeah, I was just wondering when you actually menstruate, ma'am. Like roughly, how many days does that last?
Well, Eric, it's usually around 6 to 7 days, little woman. Eric, sweetie? Eric, what is going on? This keeps happening.
Mom, you gotta tell me something.
Of course, honey.
Roughly how many nights have I been throwing up at dinner?
I don't know, Eric. It's probably been 6 or 7 nights.
Hey, Jesus, get your stuff, man. We're going out for drinks.
What?
Look, I know it's been hard for you trying to adjust here and everything. So the wife and I were talking, and we found a nice Christian lady we're going to set you up with.
Oh, I don't think so. Thanks, but...
Oh, come on, man. She's a really great woman, and she just converted to Christianity. My wife met her at the same place that she became Christian.
So then I was like, you know what? I need a new direction in my life. It's like I just got so sick of everyone being such a pussy all the time, and all this woke garbage and women trying to be men. So I just started reading the Bible, you know? I mean, I didn't actually read the Bible, but I listened to a lot of podcasts. And once I went through my transition, I was like, this is great, only now guys are always checking out my Christianity.
Sorry, could you all excuse me? I need to go to the bathroom.
Sure thing, Jesus.
He seems nice.
Miss Davidson? Miss Coco Slutty Davidson?
Oh yeah, that's me. I'm Coco Slutty Davidson. Just here to get an abortion.
The doctor's right in here, ma'am.
Hey, Doc. All right, listen. I need you to perform an abortion, but it's not for me. It's for my partner. And you can't tell anyone, not even my partner.
How am I supposed to do that?
Well, you're gonna come with me, see? And we're gonna sneak into my house, and you're gonna suck that thing out while everyone's asleep.
Your house wouldn't happen to be white, would it?
Hey, how do you know that?
Look, Mr. President, I've seen the news. If you got Satan pregnant, that's your responsibility.
Well, it's your responsibility now, or else I'll sue you. How about that?
Even if I wanted to help you, sir, I have no idea how to perform an abortion on the offspring of Satan. To do that, you'd need some kind of expert on the Antichrist.
Peter Thiel knows about the Antichrist. Peter Thiel knows about the Antichrist.
I'm Peter Thiel, and I know about the Antichrist.
All right, listen. You people have a very serious problem here. Your students appear to be in some kind of cult involving the numbers 6 and 7. All right, so what should we do? I'm going to need access to all your school's private data. School records, health records, and of course, all security cameras.
Oh, no. Look, I don't think we need it.
Is this really what we've come to? Freely handing people's personal data over to some tech billionaire preaching shit about the Bible?
You got a problem with Jesus, bro?
Come on, man. You became a Christian like 3 months ago.
Yeah, I've got fucking faith, dude. What do you have, you little bitch? You want to throw down, bro?
Okay. Hey.
You want to see what it feels like to talk shit about Christians, dude? I'll kick your heated ass, bro!
I just try to be still, Eric.
Doctor, could I ask a question?
Of course.
About how long do you need me to be still?
Just about 10 seconds, Eric.
Okay. So how long now?
Just another 6-7 seconds, Eric.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cartman, but we can't pinpoint the source of his illness. If he continues to vomit this much daily, I'm afraid it could be life-threatening.
But doctor, if I'm not able to keep any food down, roughly how long would it take? Roughly how long would it take for the human body to die?
Eric, I'm going to be very honest with you. Without sufficient nutrients, the body shuts down after 6 to 7 weeks.
Excuse me, that's my computer.
Yes, and your computer has all the personal data of the students here. It's okay, Jesus. Peter Thiel knows what he's doing. I've downloaded all the students' information and loaded them into an AI face detection program so the school security cameras can watch their every move. Now look. 2 students passing each other in the hallway. They give each other the sign, 6-7. Exactly 67 seconds later, this odd parka-wearing child makes the same gesture. And then, inside the girls' bathroom, 2 girls doing the same thing.
Wait, why is there a camera inside the girl's bathroom?
To stop the Antichrist. Now I'm following the lead on this girl here. She went home to 67 Mala Vista Drive. Going through her family's medical records, I found that her father has testicular cancer and 67 days ago had one testicle removed.
That really feels like none of our business.
I don't know how I'm supposed to work with nosy Nancy peering over my shoulder all the time. Jesus, let's you and me have a quick chain wiggle out in the hall. I'm getting close. I almost have the key to stop it from happening.
We are running out of time, Mr. Teal. The Antichrist is coming. Satan is shopping for baby strollers as we speak.
If I'm going to learn what these numbers mean, I'm going to need access to every government database.
You will have it, Mr. Teal. Nothing is more important than making sure this baby is not born.
Look, man, I know it's tough, but you gotta understand that drastic times call for drastic measures.
I just don't feel good about treating people this way. I think the most important thing still has to be loving and respecting each other.
All right, man, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Are you a fag?
No, that has nothing to do with it. It just...
Are you fucking sure?
I'm just trying to say that I'm really confused right now.
Okay, but confused like you don't know if you're attracted to dudes or like what?
Like how we can just change everything about who we are.
I think you still just don't understand what Christians today are about. Come on, there's someone I think you should talk to.
Oh yes, the Antichrist. I've listened to a lot of podcasts about that. Everyone keeps saying how the Antichrist is coming, but I'm like, he already did. I was married to him in 2018. But seriously, if he saw how Christian I was, now he'd probably shit his pants. Don't be jealous. He's so funny.
Hey. Hey, Satan.
Hello, Boss.
Ah, fuck, shit!
Oh, sorry, Boss. I did not know Satan was sleeping.
Yeah, that's all he ever does anymore.
Poor Boss. If you're going to jack off, shall I fetch your cum rag?
Hey, I wasn't jacking off.
Sure thing, Boss. I'll go get your cum rag. What is taking you so long?
I'm very close to finding the secret of the numbers. I've narrowed it down to one little boy who seems more possessed than the others.
Then deal with him. And keep it quiet. Nobody can know that we are working together. When I become president, I will give you full access to everyone's data.
I've already spoken with the mother, and I'm on my way now to face the child.
Peter Thiel knows about the Antichrist. Peter Thiel knows about the Antichrist.
I'm Peter Thiel, and I know about the Antichrist.
Let's deal with the Antichrist today.
Is your son home?
Yes, Mr. Teal. He's right upstairs.
Eric, I'm Peter Thiel. I'm here to help our country.
Okay.
I came to see you in an Uber, Eric. Would you like to know how long it took me to get here?
How long?
It took around 6 or 7 minutes. I'm not really
No way! No way! You know, they're all just a bunch of libtards anyways. I know what's up. I listen to podcasts. You want to know who I think the Antichrist is? Greta Thunberg, with her stupid haircut and her dumb bangs. Someone should yank out whatever's up her ass.
I can't. I just can't.
Everything all right, bud?
No, everything's not all right. I don't know what I'm doing here.
You're trying to get with the program, bro. Peggy Rockbottom is a hot Christian girl. Now stop acting gay.
Look, I don't know what you think Christianity is, but it has nothing to do with that.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that you and a lot of other people seem to have a very warped sense of what Christianity is.
Are you questioning my faith? You want to fucking go?